G'day fish keepers, Cam here from thefishroom.co.nz. In today's video we're talking about something that no one really wants to talk about, but something that most probably every single fish keeper has had to encounter at some point in their fish keeping career or the fish keeping time, and that's having to either cull off fish or euthanize fish. So it's not a pleasant topic, but it is a very essential topic. So we're just going to discuss a few methods of doing it, some humane methods, and we're going to discuss what reasons we would be doing this for as well. Okay, so let's start the discussion on some of the reasons why we would be culling or euthanizing our fish. If you're a breeder, for example, and you've bred some fish and they haven't hatched correctly, or they're deformed or something along those lines, crooked backs, missing gill plates, something like that, the humane thing to do then would be to put them down. You don't want them going through the genetic lines, you don't want them continuing through in basically the general population of the fish. Of course, often these fish can live a full and healthy, no issues life, but for the best part, people are looking for a high quality fish, and things like crooked spines and missing gill plates and wonky donkeys and stuff like that, missing fins, are not desirable. So often breeders will put them down or cull them off when they're young. Euthanizing side of things, you may have a fish that you've been trying to medicate, hasn't worked, you've been really sick. Might have dropsy, you've got no way of curing that. Might have been an African cichlid that's got into a fight with another one and it's very clearly got injuries that you're not going to be able to rectify over any period of time. You might have been trying to fix some issues that have happened with a fish from a fight. You might have spent the last 3 months and look, it's just not getting any better. Everything you've tried is not working. So that's might be the time that you're looking to euthanize a fish. So some of the more common methods of doing this would be having bigger fish that you're feeding the fish out to, which often a lot of breeders have, using clove oil, blunt force trauma, using a knife, or putting the fish in the freezer. So we're just going to discuss these 5 most common methods that people are using to euthanize and culling off their fish. So we'll start with feeding out. Again, this is a method that's normally used when people are breeding, can be used when people are breeding, as opposed to if you've got sick fish. If you're feeding a sick fish to a live and healthy fish, chances are that potentially a parasite or disease is going through will go to that fish that you're feeding anyway. So it's not normally recommended or not normally done thing if you're trying to euthanize a fish that's unwell. But a lot of breeders do have bigger fish to deal with populations of fish that are deformed and things like that. I can see logic behind that. It's not that I don't agree with it, because it makes absolute sense. I just don't think that our fish eat enough fish in the wild for that to be considered a really good method. A lot of the fish that we keep in our aquariums eat insects and chew on algae and crustaceans and stuff like that, so if we loaded them up with lots of culls, and that's in the long term not going to be the most beneficial for the bigger fish that we're feeding. I also work on the theory of when culling fish or feeding out live food, that it has to be taken in one bite. That's my own personal stance. If the fish that's being culled is so big that the fish that's eating it takes more than one go on it, sort of plays with it, rips it to pieces, then I'm absolutely not okay with it. I don't think that is humane whatsoever. If it's in and out in one gulp, then I'm not too big of an issue with that one at all. I think there's a far more humane way of doing it than seeing bigger fish being ripped apart by even bigger fish. I'm not a fan of that. So feeding out is definitely the first way and option that people use. Another option people use is a clove oil bath. So it's not a method that I've ever used before. From the research I've done, I'm just not a big fan of it. I think it takes a little bit too long. So basically you'll set yourself up a small little container, put a few drops of clove oil in with some water, the fish go into the water, they slowly go unconscious, and then most people tend to put them into the freezer to completely kill them off. I think it is humane. I have no real major issues with it not being humane. I just think it takes more time than it's kind of required, especially if a fish is already sick and suffering what might be an extra 4 or 5 minutes of unnecessary suffering before it goes to the freezer and it slowly disappears is, in my mind, a little bit unnecessary. But I know it's a very common way. It's clean, it is easy, it is effective for the best part. And I think as humans we find it the most easiest to pellet because It's not gruesome, it's not gory, there's no blood, there's no guts or anything like that. You literally just put your fish into some clove oil, they slowly but surely fall asleep, kind of like if you're putting down a cat or a dog, and then obviously goes in the freezer and gets finished that way. So second option is using clove oil. So another option to euthanize your fish is blunt force trauma. This is the method that I prefer. I prefer this because it is ridiculously fast. Catch the fish, put it in the net, and then throw it as hard as you can on the floor or against a wall. I know it sounds really gruesome. Every now and then you get the odd bit that sort of pops and goes a little bit gross, but it's very, very uncommon. But it is fast. Like you're literally catching the fish, putting it in your hand and throwing it on the ground, and it's done. So I find it the most efficient as far as speed goes. I find it really efficient as far as actually getting the job done. It is a little bit gruesome, and again, as a human being, we go, oh, how can you do that? That's not humane, that's not good. But we're talking a matter of seconds as opposed to a matter of minutes, and the fish is just gone and out of pain and is, job done sort of thing. So that is the method that I use. It's the one that I prefer. It can work on all sizes of fish. If you're talking about fry, a really quick flick on the head gets it done as well. Really big fish, African cichlids for example, really hard, fast throw to the ground, easy as. You can take a little bit more time, you can put them in a bag and then sort of flick the bag on the ground as well. But again, getting into the time thing, trying to get it done as quick and efficient as possible, and that's just a little bit extra work in that process. So blunt force trauma is another option that people use, and it's the one that I personally prefer. Another option that people use is a big knife to the back of the neck, into the brain, or cutting off the spinal cord of the fish. This is a far gruesome more way. Obviously, you're cutting your pet, cutting your animal up, but it's definitely one that people use. It's not one that I like to use because I'm not confident in doing it. It's not one that I've ever done because I'm not confident in doing it. I believe that people that go fishing on a regular basis use this to dispatch fish when they catch them. So people that are fishing on a regular basis will be quite comfortable with this sort of scenario and will be quite confident in knowing exactly where they can make the insertion and dispatch the fish. It is very fast, it is very effective, and time-wise makes it fairly humane. But again, for me, it's not one that I've done, it's not one that I'd be confident doing, so I wouldn't do that myself. A little bit harder to do on smaller fish because smaller fish, bigger knife, a little more fiddly. But when it comes to doing it on bigger fish, it is fairly effective and fairly easy because you've got more room to move. Time-wise, again, getting it out, getting it placed in position as quick as you can, and getting your movement done, so it can be relatively quick. But it's not one that I personally like. And again, as a human being, it can be quite gruesome, particularly if it's a pet fish, one you've had for a very long time to be doing that. But it's absolutely a method that people use to euthanize fish. Again, it's not one that I can possibly do. I don't think I could do it even if I was trained, because there's bonds with your fish, but it's definitely a method that people do use. So the last method that I've got is putting the fish in the freezer. This is not one that I encourage, it's not one that I've used and I will never use. From the research that I've done, it's actually quite inhumane. It's quite slow. The fish slowly but surely freeze, and from the research that I've read and that I've seen, little bits of crystal shards go through the body and sort of cut them from the inside out slowly as they're slowly killing it. The fish appear just to drift off to sleep as they're getting too cold and they don't survive. But I don't think it is a very humane way of doing it all, but it is a method that is often encouraged or suggested on things like Facebook groups and forums. But it's definitely not one that I think is humane, effective. It's definitely effective, but humane or efficient for the fish that we're trying to put down, basically. So definitely not one that I encourage. I think it's not humane. I don't think it is. It is a good practice for the fish, essentially. So So there we have the 5 more commonly advised way of killing or euthanizing fish, basically. I hope this video helps you make an informed decision. It's not a nice time regardless which method you use, but like I said, I hope this sort of helps inform you to make a better decision on the most humane way that you can find to euthanize your fish. With pretty much everything in this hobby, it's all opinion based for the best part. It's experience based for the best part. My experience and my opinion will be different to yours. That's why I added this sort of human element to most of this conversation. Like I said, as a human, it's quite gruesome to, stab a fish with a knife or to throw them on the ground, but it can be the most efficient and quickest way of doing it. With putting them in the freezer seems like a really easy way to go as a human, but it can be quite the opposite way around for a fish. So I do hope that this video is going to help people make some informed decisions. It's not a video that I really wanted to make, but I also think it's a video or a conversation that needs to be had, and that's basically why I've done this. So so with that, I'm going to leave it with you. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. If you've got questions and you want me to validate why I feel these ways are the way, I'm happy to answer them as well. But like I said, I just hope this helps inform some people on some thoughts and some decisions on this process.